Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a week two edition of College Football Game Day Live. I'm your host, Thor Nystrom, joined as always by my partner in crime, Mike Farrell of Mike Farrell Sports. Mike, we got a full week one slate in our rearview mirror. Last night we got to watch the Kansas fighting Jayhawks take down Illinois. How you doing on this Saturday morning?
Doing good. Won that one. Again, all these end up being nail biters. I mean, Illinois has the football late in the game. It wasn't a nail biter. I mean, they could have cut it to 4, but still, I mean, nothing's easy in gambling. But that one, it looked good. I just didn't like the matchup for Illinois. I think Kansas is for real as long as Daniel stay healthy. So moving into Saturday with a little bit of momentum.
Kansas is getting back to a bowl game this year, so we're super stoked over here, ready to get back into it. For the next 90 minutes, as you guys know, Mike and I are going to go through all of our best bets on the week 2 slate. We are also going to take every single one of your questions. The deeper cut, the better. We're going to get through, I think we got 13 games on the docket of the biggest games on the slate. Anyone's lower than that, certainly ask us your questions on the sides, the totals, any props you want to talk about. I've been going through the prop lines for the last 3-4 days. Prize Picks is sick of taking my bets at this point. We also got some on the offshore, so happy to talk about player props too as we go. Mike, we're going to start out obviously as we always do with the noon kickoffs Eastern. We'll start with Utah Baylor, a game where we got some news here this morning. Pete Thamel up bright and early telling us that Cam Rising's not going to play. That's not a surprise at all. I'm not sure when we're going to see Cam Rising. It's certainly not going to be today. Baylor will also be without their starting quarterback, Blake Shapen. We'll get to see a little bit more of Sawyer Robertson here. But Mike, with all this being said, this line now around 7, and it gotten up to 7.5. Market buys back a little bit with this news that should have been expected on Utah. Who do you like in this game? What's your angle?
Yeah, Rising doesn't matter. Second week in a row. Utah's a better football team. They're more physical. They got a really good defense. Baylor was a mess last week. It may be good that they have a quarterback change, but I don't think it's going to be, something where you could throw a guy in there, expect him to right the ship immediately. They may get a little bit more momentum offensively moving forward with a new quarterback, but it's not going to help. I know this is on the road. It's not going to be easy, but Utah should win this game by 10 points. They're just a better football team. I mean, I honestly think Florida is better than Baylor.
Could be.
A roster standpoint.
Yeah.
And they handled Florida with ease, and so they'll do the same thing with Baylor.
I agree with that. Yeah, on the Sunday show, the early line show I do with Eric Froton, I was banging the table for people to bet the Utah side as early in the week as they could. At that time, it was Utah -5. It got up to 7.5. Like I said, there's been a little bit of buyback this morning with the Cam Rising thing at 7 right now. I'm still laying the 7 with Utah. It's actually good that news came out and some people reacted to it. I'm not sure why, because again, we knew that Cam Rising wasn't going to play. But I much prefer it at 7 than 7.5 with the hook. But either way, my line in this game is Utah -9.8. So I think there's value either way, but especially at the 7. Baylor looked awful last week. Them losing to Texas State was no fluke. And if the Colorado upset hadn't happened over TCU, a lot more people would have been talking about that. Baylor's pretty lucky that happened. Texas State was up in that game 28-13 at halftime, just whipping them. They were whipping them on the line of scrimmage, Mike. It wasn't just Kenny like the pyrotechnics and everything like that. Certainly that discombobulated Baylor's defense. But like I said, even the upfront meat and potato stuff, Baylor did not look good. I have serious reservations in particular about Baylor's defensive front. I think they're going to get mauled in this game by Utah's offensive line. We know Utah's got the stable of 3 backs. I think they're just going to grind on Baylor. I like the scrambling quarterback they bring in, Johnson, as well. I think Baylor's going to have problems with all that stuff. So I'll lay the 7. One prop angle, though, Mike, and you can hit on yours, as we go along here. But I thought the books dropped Sawyer Robertson's over-under passing way too low. Utah has a very good defense, yes. They're particularly good in the front 7. You can throw a little bit on Utah. We've seen that last week. It's really the only thing that Florida did. Graham Mertz got over 300 yards. Some of that was in garbage time for sure. Sawyer Robertson going to be able to throw it around in garbage time here too, because they're going to be down all game long, I think. But let me see what line I got on that one. As I pulled it was low. I'm not going to be able to pull it up quick enough, but too low on that one. So I would go over on the Robertson pass. I'm trying to find it. He had
Yeah,
a 13
yeah, way
fantasy
too
score on
many.
Prize Picks. I thought that was too low,
Well,
but
you
the
get too many
yards too.
bets to keep track of, man. I mean, you
I
just
do. I
yeah,
do.
80,000. And by the way, uh, for people that don't follow us on Twitter. You and I were both on the Sam Laporta over. That was so.
Yes.
I mean, it's easy money.
Free money.
Um, so some of the props you see out there are just oddly low, and then it's adjusted throughout the season. Like nobody knows this guy, so obviously they're going to be a little bit low. There's not a lot of data for the quarterback here, so I understand where you're coming from. Uh,
Yeah,
and there,
Robert so yesterday, Mike, Robertson was in the high 190s. It was like or, 190,
yeah,
195, like something like that. It is up to 203.5 today, but, I mean, Baylor, their only recourse is gonna be to throw here. They ain't running at all. The Dominic Richardson kid, he's gonna have the lights shut out on him. Richard Reese, who I don't know what happened to Richard Reese last week. I don't think that Dominic Richardson, the Oklahoma State transfer, is better than Richard Reese, but we didn't see Richard Reese last week. It's like Baylor, maybe playing your best offensive player from last year might help you in this game where you're getting upset. But either way, the running game is going to be out for Baylor. The only recourse they're going to have here is to throw. And Sawyer Robertson playing this whole game because Blake Shapen is going to be in street clothes.
we agree on this one.
Agree on this one. Going to the next one, Mike. The game we have some awesome games today. We'll talk of Texas and Alabama later on. Nebraska and Colorado has gotten just as much ink as Texas and Alabama, and of course every other game this week. Interesting things with the line. I mentioned last week. Speaking of the Twitter stuff, on my bookie, they forgot to pull down the Colorado line for this game, even after their game with TCU was done. So you could still, even after the Colorado TCU game was done, get Colorado plus 9.5 here. I finally put out a tweet to my followers and they rushed in within 10 minutes. My bookie had finally pulled that down. But then when this line was reopened in the market, some of the places opened at 1.5. Some of them opened at, I'm talking Colorado favored, and then some of them 2.5. Then the line got up to 3 and 3.5 at a lot of books at intermittent parts of the week, but then it would come back to 3. It's like every time it got up to 3.5, the sharps would buy it back, whatever. Some books right now you're seeing 2.5. We got weird stuff going on with the line. Obviously, there's a ton of action on this thing, but depending on the juice you want to pay, there's books out there where it's -3 right now. There are books with elevated juice where it's, if you want to do Colorado, -2.5. With all that being said, Mike, Deion Sanders' first game in Boulder, who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I'm going to go Colorado. I mean, I of course thought they would get smoked by TCU. I didn't think they would be a very good football team. I didn't think they would play well together. Thought there might be a lot of mistakes, penalties. None of that happened. They look great. TCU may stink. We don't know. We're going to find out, but it doesn't matter. Nebraska stinks. I mean, that game against Minnesota, if you watch that game, which I did, you really like to punish yourself and watch horrible offensive football. They can't throw the ball.
I was in the building, Mike. I'm
Yeah,
a glutton for punishment.
gross, just gross. They can't throw the ball. They fumble. Their defense is solid, Nebraska. I think, but Colorado's fast, and I think speed's going to win this football game. I'm expecting Colorado to win. Now, again, this is uncharted territory. We really don't know. We saw Colorado play great last week. We don't know how bad TCU is. We don't know how bad that defense is. It looks pretty bad. We don't know how Colorado's going to react to coming off a win. We don't know how they're going to play at home. We don't know anything. I mean, this is, again, a brand new roster, brand new coach. They could fall flat on their face and lose to Nebraska. It just doesn't look like it will happen from a personnel standpoint. They're faster. What Nebraska has to do, have to make this a run battle. They have to make this a battle in the trenches. They have to, keep everything in front of them on defense. They have to make Colorado try to run the football because we didn't see that against TCU. They have to run the football effectively. They have to turn this into a smash mouth, ugly running game like against Minnesota, and then not choke like they did against Minnesota. So all those things have to happen for Nebraska to actually win and cover. Um, you know, and none of it's going to happen. I mean, they may get into an ugly game. I can't see that. If they do, they're still going to choke because that's what Nebraska does. So take Colorado laying the 2.5.
Yeah, Nebraska's certainly going to try to slow this thing down. They sort of have to. Like they can't get into a track meet with Colorado. The thing that I do think Nebraska will be able to do here is run the ball. TCU was very effective running the ball against Colorado. Trey Sanders was getting what he wanted. A couple of those other guys, they had the running lanes. Colorado, though, we talked about this last week. The one good thing about the Colorado defense is their secondary. They got 2 5 stars at cornerback. Miles Slusher in the slot. Dion's son is one of the deep safeties, a very good kid. The other son, not the one that plays quarterback, you got 2 on the team. Their secondary is good, but up front on defense, that's where they can struggle. Jeff Sims, Mike, like you were mentioning, he can't throw. He couldn't throw 3 years at Georgia Tech. He still can't throw. He's not accurate. He has no anticipation. He doesn't sense the pass rush. He is an awful thrower, but a very, very good athlete. Jeff Sims, I've said this on Twitter numerous times. He needs to change positions if he wants to play at the NFL level. They'll be able to, but he'll be able to grind out some scrambling yards. And they have some okay backs in Nebraska, no star, but they'll be able to get some yards on the ground. It's just they can't throw. And once you're sort of bringing a knife into a gunfight here, because Colorado's going to put up points on everyone this year. Nebraska's defense is salty for sure, but Colorado going to put up points on everybody. One sort of troubling thing, or topical thing with regards to this. Nebraska's defense last week gave to Minnesota's offense, gave up a bunch of 3rd and long conversions. Colorado in week 1 against TCU was awesome on 3rd and long. So, like, if that continues, it's going to be really hard for Nebraska to get Colorado off the field. Shadir Sanders doesn't really turn the ball over. He just doesn't. He takes really good care of the ball. So, that's what Nebraska's going to have to do to get off the field. It's going to be a track meet otherwise. And they're going to, in my opinion, I think Cornhuskers get dragged out into deep waters on this. And I'll say too, Mike, people have asked me on Twitter, like, this week, like, oh, aren't you afraid that there's so much money on Colorado, but the line hasn't moved and, that you're going to be going up against Sharps? Well, I was up against Sharps last week on Colorado. Like you do your own handicap on each game. And like the circumstance around it's a data point, right? But like, no, am I scared? No, I'm not at all. Like, just like I wasn't last week. Like I got my line on this game is Colorado minus 5.1. And I don't think this is a good matchup for Nebraska. If Sharps want to disagree with me, that's fine. I'm happy to go up against the Sharps. That's just my opinion on this game.
Okay, real quick, a prop.
Yeah, please.
Plus 650 is the first touchdown scorer. Just take it. Just take it.
Who, Mike?
He's gonna. He's the best player on the football field. It's hard for a first touchdown scorer. That's always tricky because you don't even know if Colorado's going to score the first touchdown. But Travis Hunter at 650 would be higher than that, so I would take Travis Hunter plus 650. Just throw a fiver on it and see what happens.
Mike, they're gonna have to start doing the Otani lines in the props and be like Travis Hunter on offense touchdown, Travis Hunter on defense touchdown.
That's true.
He gonna return a couple to the house this year too. I feel like
see anything defensively. I don't know if they're gonna do that, but I'll tell you what. He's gonna score, so he's minus 125 anytime touchdown scorer, which I don't like. The negative there, but I'll throw $3, $5 on plus 650 for him to score first, and if he does, you can give me 10%, whatever you want.
Just 2 quick more points on this game. Number one, it's been overblown the amount of transfers you take in affecting you the next year. Last year, the biggest data point we have on this so far, 3 Power 5 programs took 18 or more transfers. That was Ole Miss, LSU, and USC. Each one of them flew over their win total in the preseason. USC was 9-5. They finished 11-1 the regular season. Ole Miss was 7-5, finished 8-4. LSU was 7 flat. They finished 9-3. It just goes to reason here. The more talent you bring in, that's the important thing.
Not a 90% overhaul, though. None of those teams, they were like 30, 40%. This is
because they didn't need to. Last year, Colorado, the worst. Mike, when's the last time you've seen a Power 5 roster as bad as Colorado last year?
No, it's horrible. But here's the thing that's going to change in college football, which is great about this, is that there's somebody's going to copy this if it continues to work.
For sure, they should.
Flat on their face, lose to Nebraska, have a 3-9 season, 4-8. That 5.5 win total, I already mashed the under 3.5, which it's not looking good for me. I would take it. I think they're going to win 6 games. They're not going to go 10-2.
No.
If they have success, people are going to copy this, and they're going to start overhauling the roster, which is good for me as the portal king. Just even though Lane Kiffin says he's the portal king, I'm the portal king. just tracking it. December, that 45-day window is going to be nuts because of Deion Sanders and Dabo Swinney. If
Yeah.
you're,
Learn something, Dabo.
take 2 or 3, do something. It's just like, don't do what Deion does, but come on, take a few.
I'm happy you opened the window for me on projected win total. I actually miscited my Colorado projected win, my system's new one earlier this week on a show, so I can clear this up now. My system's got 6.8 wins on Colorado projected going forward. Uh, I mean, obviously way up from their preseason win total, but I thought that was interesting getting back my new numbers on that, and the system updates the projected wins. I got Colorado 6.8 wins this season and 4.1 wins in the Pac 12. So we'll see how it goes. Obviously, you win this one next week. You got Colorado State. I mean, they're closing in on their over under win total if they just win this game after 3. So that'll be interesting to watch. We'll get to one more game and then we'll take your audience questions. So anything you got, sides, total questions, props, put them into the chat and we'll get to them here in a second. Mike, the next one we wanted to talk about at noon Eastern, Notre Dame traveling to North Carolina State. We have some line movement stuff here. Notre Dame started out closer to -10 earlier this week. This thing is down now to Notre Dame -7 live. We also have a dropping total. It was in the 50s earlier this week. Now it is down to 49. With those numbers on the board, Mike, who do you like in this game?
This is a tough one because now it's at 7. I hate that number. Obviously, everybody hates that number. On the road, you bake in maybe 3 less points for Notre Dame. I mean, they're going to win the football game. I think they're a better football team. I'm not really overly impressed. NC State was up in my neck of the woods playing UConn, and they looked really bad. Brennan Armstrong, it's going to take him apparently a little while to rekindle the love he has with his offensive coordinator because they just didn't look good. Their defense is solid, but I'm going to take Notre Dame here. I'm going to lay the 7. I liked, NC State when it was 10, but I don't like this number at all. First of all, I'm not betting this live. I'm not touching this. You're at 7. That tells me you want me to bet and lose my money. But if I had to pick a side here, I would definitely lean Notre Dame. I think they're going to win the football game, and I would also lean under. I think this is going to be, Dave Doran's a smart coach. He's a game planner. He's a guy who can, figure out what you do best and how to slow it down. And I think they can keep Notre Dame at least to a reasonable number. They're just not going to score. That's the only problem. So give me Notre Dame if you have to take it, but I would stay away from it, and give me the under, but I'm not betting it.
I got the same take as you do. I lean Notre Dame for sure. I do have a couple minor trepidations about them, but at the 7 number, I would still lay that. My number on this game is Notre Dame -10.6, so I feel like there's value at the 7. Trepidations for reasons I'll discussing the total here. I agree with this line movement down. My system's total on this one was 47.3. Obviously, in the 50s, it was a bit too high. There's a couple different points to that. Mike, you were mentioning Armstrong and the NC State offense. It wasn't quite clicking in that opener. You have the new face. Armstrong's a new face there. Robert and I's a new face there. We were hoping that it would start quicker because those two guys worked together when they were at Virginia, going back to prior to last year. But yeah, against UConn, it was just stop and start for that offense. And you wonder now facing, you go from playing UConn to now facing what could be a top 10 defense in the nation. That could be tough if they're not on the same page again for NC State. But on the other side, I think this also is a sneaky bad matchup for Notre Dame's offense, which I think is what sort of goes to that. Sam Hartman in his career against NC State obviously played against them quite a bit because he was at Wake Forest for a long time. NC State did some of the best job that you can do against that Wake Forest offense this side of Clemson. That, the Clemson against they're the slow mesh killers because they get the immediate penetration. They blow it up at the mesh point. But outside of that, the best team I seen play defense against the Sam Hartman Wake Forest teams, it was NC State. They have that 3-3-5 defense, and it's hard to know where the pressure's coming, where they're going to stress your line, who's dropping back. They can just do a whole bunch of different things with it. And that was difficult for Hartman to deal with. Both the pressure, or also, I think it's coming from that side. We make a line adjustment, but now it's coming from this way. He just did not play well against NC State in his career. This is sort of a difference. You don't have to have the slow mesh. You have a much better offensive line. Your run game's good now, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But those are a little bit of slight trepidations. I think the under is the play here. I would also lean Notre Dame, but I've gotten less confident in that as the week has gone along, gotten into my handicap, but I still would lay this 7, but on the under as well. Mike, we're gonna get to audience questions in just a second here, but I wanted to take a second to tell you guys about the Betting Pros app. Download that thing on iOS or Android. It's a great app. It really, like, I do all my stuff in there. It tracks your picks. It gives you analytics on all your picks, what you're doing good, the time frame, the streaks you're on, different stuff like that. Points you at types of games that you pick well, and then ones that maybe you should avoid, stuff like that. And when you download that thing, the other cool thing about it, it tracks all of your picks, like I'm saying, going forward, whatnot. So you can also set game notifications. So it's sort of like, I think of it like, Mike, when you buy stocks and then you set like a price where you'll buy it or sell it, whatever, you can do that with the line tracker in the app, like at this price, I want an alert. I'm on a bunch of different books, so that thing certainly helps me. You can also follow people. So you follow Mike Farrell, you can follow me, you can follow any of our NFL experts, and you get all of our picks. If you set the notifications, you get them on your phone. So head on over to bettingpros.com/apps and download that thing today. Mike, we'll take a look and see if we got anything in our mailbag to start out here.
Mailbag. Hey, while you're looking,
yeah,
I just realized what's next to me.
What? What do you got? Oh, looking good.
Huh?
Whose signature is that, Mike?
Yes.
That looks like my handwriting.
Yes.
Oh, baby. Yeah, AD.
Right?
You love to
inspire the rest of the show.
Oh, you love to see that. Well, after the Kansas game last night, I don't need much more. Guys, ask your questions in the chat. We'll hit them as we keep going here. I don't think we got anything in the mailbag for the first segment, Mike. Yeah.
Thoughts on Air Force Sam Houston plus 13.5?
Oh yeah. So the as far as the Air Force one, let's see. So we got a live line at 13.5. I got Sam Houston plus 15 earlier this week. I'm also heavy on the under. Even at the 13.5. Let me check what my line is on that.
You asked me to drag us into the weeds too. I hate when you do that. I know.
Yeah, drag us into the weeds.
Listen, gambling's fun and all that stuff, but
test us.
You're trying to give me Sam Houston stuff. I'm not touching that game.
You like Casey Keeler, Mike? I know you do.
I'm not touching that game for $1 million.
A 2-time national title winner, Mike, at 2 different Division I schools.
That's fine,
Mr. Casey Keeler.
You could bet on Air Force Sam Houston. I'm not touching that.
He changed his offense at Delaware when Joe Flacco went.
But that was William Herman who was listening. And by the way, we set records last week for.
We did. Thank you to everyone.
We're going to do it again.
And now
we're going to do it again today.
Oh, I hope so.
Oh,
but
I can tell. I'm already looking.
As far as the Air Force, so Sam Houston last week, their first game in the FBS, super impressive, holding BYU to 14 points. I think Sam Houston was 20.5 point underdog, 21 point underdog, something like that. And BYU only got 14 points. Now, Sam Houston got 0 points. I don't know what we're going to get from that offense this year. They are still sort of undecided on their quarterback and different stuff like that. But that defense is salty, and Casey Keeler can coach. Air Force still running the flex bone thing. Less viable now than it was pre-ban cut blocks outside the tackle box, for sure. I mean, that's why Ken Niumatalolo is no longer the coach of Navy. That's why Army changed their offense. Air Force, I do like the Zach Larrier kid that is taking over at quarterback. He was a track demigod in high school. Like, that kid is super fast. So it's fun to watch him do the option and whatnot. But like I said, less viable. Sam Houston defense, I think, is pretty salty. My line in that game is 10 point Air Force minus 10.1. My over-under is 28.5. So I'm certainly taking the points. Even at 13.5, I will. I prefer the number I got it at, but even at 13.5, I'd lean that way. But under is my favorite play in that game.
I do really good with the questions, so I'm going to set them up for you.
Sure. Do it, please.
Man, this is me. This is me being the host. Don Pla, PLA.
Yeah.
Take Holy Cross plus 9.5 versus Boston College, and I'll give my thoughts on this too because Boston College is my team. And then Jeremiah, love to hear your thoughts on Holy Cross BC. I don't know what's going on, why so many people care about this game. Do not take Holy Cross. I know BC stinks. I know they lost last week to a bad team. I know they got a quarterback change. I know they got all this stuff going on. But I've watched Boston College play Holy Cross for 1,000 years. Holy Cross FCS team, nice little program. It's great. BC's going to thump them. Take Boston College laying 9.5. They have to thump them. Jeff Hafley's not on the hot seat, but I mean, at 3-9 last year, they expected to turn around a young football team. They didn't expect to lose that opener. That was when they penciled in for a win. There's a statement game needs to be made now. Is there a statement against Holy Cross? They're FCS, but they're gonna win this game by 20. Take Boston College. Do not fall for the Holy Cross thing.
You weren't impressed by Holy Cross's 42-20 win over Merrimack last week, Mike?
I've watched that level of football, and listen, I'm not against that level of football. FCS is great, D2 is great. I got a buddy who works at a D3 college. I watched that. That's not great, but they just can't hang from a roster perspective. BC is going to get bigger, stronger in this football game. They're going to wear them down. They're going to. It's trust me, Merrimack, Holy Cross, it's great, but BC should cover this one. 9.5 is low to me. Now
I'm going BC there too. My line on that game is actually Boston College minus 12.3.
so
So
we agree.
also showing a little bit of value there.
Now, a
Yeah.
few years ago, if you remember, maybe it was even last year, 2 years ago, I can't remember. It might have been last year. I can't remember. BC, UConn, they destroyed UConn every year. They ended up losing outright. I think it was maybe last year. I blocked it out because I can't. It's PTSD for me. So it could happen that they don't cover this, but I really like BC to cover that 9.5.
We agree.
Here's Mike Huseman, our buddy, who I've been talking
Oh,
to,
Mike.
who does
Yeah.
some great coaching content for my website, MikeFarrellSports.com, little plug. Wake Forest and Vanderbilt, the over-under is 56.5. What do you got, Thor?
In that game, I like Vanderbilt. I feel like that line was inflated. I have Wake Forest minus 8.8. Now that it's come down to 10,
Over-under, though.
we're closer on the margins on that one. I'm over. My system total on that game is 66.
I agree. I'm over on that one, too. The Onion Man is asking, he wants to see if we should lay 27 in the first half against Ball State for UGA. I can't
Oh,
lay 27.5. I can't.
uh, I I'm on. I have a small ticket on Ball State in that game. I'm almost ashamed to say.
Oh, my.
But yeah, I Georgia. I don't know. I don't know about Georgia. We'll see. We're early going, but a little bit trepidatious there. I think Ball State keeps it within that
I
ridiculously
wouldn't
high
touch
number.
I'm not betting the first half in that game. I'm just saying I can't lay 27 points and a half. Now, you saw my
I'm
theory
taking them.
in the Louisville game where I was up 43-0, and I ended up not covering that.
Oh, against Murray.
Yeah, that was bad.
Yeah.
That was a bad bet. I did not do well in that one. So
Have you seen Murray State's history of head coaches? They had like a 2-decade, 3-decade where it was just a Grand Slam hire every time. It was crazy.
I so this is the thought process of a gambler sometimes is like the line's so high that you're giving me a 43-0 lead at the start of the game. I just can't imagine a team losing that lead, and then they do because they stink, and Louisville is angry after their horrible performance against Georgia Tech, and then I end up losing that. So the thought process, and the reason I'm bringing this up, is 27-0 Ball State in the first quarter. They could not cover that. I mean, so I'm not touching that. I think it's a difficult one, to lay. I wouldn't touch it. But that being said, I mean, gun to head, I would take Ball State to cover the 27 in the first
We
half.
agree.
You get a figure like 1 3 and out or a turnover, and maybe you're in. But the Onion Man loves that game. Steve Jackson, any money line picks over plus 200. That's you. I won't do that.
Yeah, let me look up the current odds. I definitely have some. I don't know if there's still plus 200, but we'll find out here in a second.
Robert Moore wants to know about UTEP Northwestern. What our thoughts about it is?
Oh, yeah, I got some thoughts.
I know you have thoughts on everything, Thor. You
It-
never have thoughts.
I seen a lot of people, some buddies and different like on UTEP, and I get it. Northwestern is Northwestern, and I watched that game against Rutgers. They look pathetic. UTEP hasn't looked good at all. I was actually high on UTEP this summer because they brought everybody back. Hardison's a 3-year starter. Tyron Smith wanted to go into A&M, couldn't. 1,000+ yard receiver. The transfer didn't go over, however you say that. So he went back to UTEP, and they had a lot of guys back in their defense too. But I have not liked what I've seen of UTEP so far. And now, like, you have this mediocre at best G5 program, maybe even sub mediocre, traveling to it. I mean, it is a Big Ten opponent. You're on the road.
Northwestern, a G5 program. I mean, you're really going to consider them Power Five?
Technically speaking,
They're horrible.
I mean, it's a pick 'em proposition. I definitely think Northwestern should be favored in that game. So that is a hold your nose and bet it kind of thing. But
It is a hold your nose and bet it.
that's which way I would jump.
While
on
you
that
look for your +200s, I will say we are at an all-time live high of people watching us. So don't get nervous. I think it's
love that. Appreciate it. Appreciate you, y'all.
I think it's because I'm reading the questions. I think that's what because I'm really good at that.
The Cal line. It's Cal. Oh, okay. So Cal is over 200 at $1. So I'll say Cal. I'm seeing them at 205 at Caesars right now. That would be one of them for me. Um, I mean, I got some gross money line tickets, Mike. I mean, I don't know that I would suggest these as official ones, but we were talking about Sam Houston. I actually got one on them. I got one on Jacksonville State. I have a couple of, like, deeper dive ones. Another one that I point at people, Mike, you mentioned UConn. They're not all the way up to 200, but plus 135 you can get today against Georgia State. I think they're live in that one. Another one, potentially, we're going to be talking about this game in a little bit, but Texas Tech is 205. Also at Caesars right now. That would be one that I would potentially consider. And one last one, Mike, going to halfway G5. Houston was G5 last year. The Houston at Rice game, I don't know about Houston this year. And their win against UTSA last week was pretty fluky. Rice, they should have lost by more, Rice, if you look in the box score. But I like their defensive front, Rice. They were getting penetration. I think they sacked yours 3 times. They had like double or more tackles for loss than that. So they were playing behind the line of scrimmage a little bit. Texas offensive line, we'll have to see about that today, but I like Rice's defensive front. I think they can do some things in that game and be frisky.
Well, I got a segue for you because I'll let you continue. We got more questions we got to get to at the next break, but how about this one? How about Tulane plus 270? Ole Miss, they could win that football game.
Tulane?
Yeah, they should win that football game.
They could, but Michael Pratt is questionable now.
I think he's going to play. I know he is questionable, and that's a big, big if. I mean, but I don't know. What do I know? I said Rising was going to play against Florida because he said he felt good.
Didn't need to.
He's a game time call, so Pratt is really difficult when it comes to that. If he doesn't play, they're not going to win. But if he plays, I mean, they got a lot of returning talent. They got a chip on their shoulder. They want to be the Group of 5 New Year's 6 representative, but they also want a big. And I don't trust. So I did a top 10 quarterback list for the NFL. I don't know if you saw it the other day, and I didn't have Sam Hartman on it, and people went nuts about that. But it's a pretty good list. It's a really good quarterback class for next year's NFL draft. I had 2 people ask me about Jackson Dart, and I was like, "Am I being punked? Like, is Jackson Dart a top 10 NFL quarterback talent? He's not." And I just don't trust Ole Miss. I don't like the way they ended last season. So I guess we're getting into this game. This is our next game, right?
Yeah.
I'm
-7.
It's tough because I think Pratt's going to play. I don't think he misses a game this big unless he really, really can't go. Now, how limited is he going to be? All that stuff. I would take, if you get 7.5, take Tulane.
I'm gonna send out a text right now.
About Pratt. Not if he's playing.
Yeah.
What, Willie Fritz? You got him on your SB dial?
Well, we got people.
I got people.
We'll see. Maybe I'll have an update later on.
Sometimes, especially like this close to the day of the game, they don't answer sometimes.
We'll see if we can get any intel by the end of the show. But with that line down to 7, I think I would lean Ole Miss. If Tulane is at, let me put it this way: if Michael Pratt plays and Michael Pratt is near 100%, which it doesn't look like right now, I would prefer Tulane. My line with both teams at full strength was Ole Miss -5.7, but that line right now is at 7, and I'm not as confident as you about Michael Pratt playing today. Like that news popping up on the day of the game feels ominous to me. So maybe that's a wait and see kind of a one. Obviously, a lot is dependent on Michael Pratt. That you fall from him to their backup. He played we've seen him a little bit. It's a big drop off. That's more than a point and a half. Is Michael Pratt's more than a point and a half worth, between him and his backup. Mike, to the next one, the game that all of America wants us to talk about, the Cyhawk game. Always a good time, always a treat. I was traveling to Ames to play Iowa State this year. We have a live line on this one of Iowa -4 in a game that has always played close. Mike, who do you like in this one?
I like the under. That's it.
So does my system. We got it at 27.
I mean, come on. 36.5. You might as well make it 60. I mean, it's just these two teams. I know Iowa came out, guns blazing last week.
Sure did.
Looked great. And then, of course, I don't think Brian Ferentz was the OC for those first couple drives. I think
late getting to the stadium.
I think he was late.
Yeah.
I think he got there at the end of the first quarter and then took over, and then they started to be Iowa of old. Iowa State can't score at all. I mean, even worse than Iowa. So I don't like the side here because it's a rivalry game, and you just don't know. It's going to be probably a field goal game, so I would take, Iowa State if I had to. But no, the line is horrible. Stay away from the side. Hammer the under. Hammer it, and when it's 7-3 at the half, tweet at me and say thank you so much, because this is coming under.
Yeah, I think this is an under game. Mike, I'm an Iowa graduate. You would argue an Iowa homer, but I would not advocate for people to bet Iowa in this spot. And I get it. Like Iowa State, they have all the guys that are suspended because of the gambling thing. The quarterback's gone. I'm gonna get my first exposure to this. What is it, Rocco Becht? It's like they're it's like the creative name in NCAA football. And then
the Becht name. I mean, come on, they put out some players.
Well, I suppose they do, but this is going to be my first exposure to this kid. And then, the running back, they're doing, I thought it was going to be just Cartavius Norton because Jarrell Brock, their starting running back, he was another guy that had to hit town. It already left the team because of the gambling thing. But their offense, to your point, does not look good. They haven't figured out the running back rotation yet. I don't know about this Rocco Becht kid. Their offense is not good. But that being said, Iowa's was terrible against one of the worst teams in the FBS after their first two drives, as you were mentioning last week. They scored the touchdowns the first two drives against Utah State. Then they couldn't really do anything else. The rest, they just reverted to being Iowa. In the Cyhawk game, this is my most topical point. I've been to this game in both Ames and in Iowa City multiple times. The Cyhawk game, it's always and this is a cliche, which I don't think extends to every game that it's set up, but it certainly does this one. It's a throw the record out game. In this series, it doesn't matter which team is better or worse. They just always play down to the worst one. And that's what you sort of get. So I think this is going to be an ugly game. I think it's going to be decided by 3 either way. I don't want any part of laying more than a field goal.
I do have a prop, though.
Yeah, please.
So, and again, it's a first touchdown score, which is, if there was a prop of a no touchdown score at all in the entire game, and you gave me plus 3,000, I would hammer that.
Don't disrespect the Iowa defense, Mike.
Because it could be 9-3.
Cooper DeJean's going to bring one back.
Well, again, no touchdown score. I'm eliminating the defense. I'm hoping to take it as an offensive no touchdown score, but there's no such thing.
Sure.
The passing props are hilarious. McNamara's 189, Becht is 160.
Your boy.
I think those are both high, to be honest with you. I think your guy,
Luke
Lachey is going to be the first.
Yes.
He's plus 800. Caleb Johnson's the only one higher, plus 500 or lower, plus 500. But you can get Luke Lachey plus 800 to be the first touchdown score, or plus 180 to be anytime touchdown score. He's going to score a touchdown, so I think that's a good one. Don't go crazy, but if you got $5, throw it. You might get some money.
I got multiple ticket overs on Luke Lachey in the prop market. So they set his receptions at 4. They set his stuff too low last week too. So we hammered those. He can have more than 4 catches here. Iowa, they throw him over and over and over again. Their receivers aren't good. Lachey is the tight end that they know that's coming back, whatnot. Like Lachey is very good. I was saying this over the summer, super underrated NFL draft prospect. He's going to get all the targets in these games, whatnot. So I like the over on the 4. Even they did bring up his yardage this time. I'm trying to see what I got this
41.5 live right now.
41 and a half.
He'll be up that too.
I'll go over on that one. Yeah. Yeah. Well, actually, I bet over. I'm looking at my tickets from earlier. So this is Prize Picks. This isn't on a book, but it was 43 and a half. I went over on that. So, I think you're getting 5 catch minimum, but more likely 6 and, 6 for 68 yards, like something like that. That's what I think Lachey is coming away with. This is more of a prop game. The other kid I bet the over on was the Nico. I get him confused with the kid that was at Fresno State. The pronunciations of the name Remigio. I went over on his too because his was in the 30s.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think they're gonna like with McNamara. It's different than with Petras. Like Brian Ferentz is a dope. We both agree on that. But he obviously trusts McNamara more. He does have half a brain, right? And so like they're putting it in the air a little bit more. And Iowa, they just have the dearth of the receivers. And Remigio is a guy that they at least trust. So those are the 2 I went over. And I think the Caleb Johnson was worth a look too, because that one was in like the low 60s or something. He had the best game last week. I'm banking on that being an aberration. Iowa returned all 5 starting offensive linemen, and they really like the Caleb Johnson kid. Mike, moving to the next one, a game where we've seen the spread drop all week. This one opened at A&M minus 5.5 or 6, depending on what book you looked at beginning of the week. It is now all the way down to A&M minus 3. This was one of my early bets of the week. I locked this in on the Betting Pros app. I think on Monday was Miami plus 5.5. I'm not surprised the line has come down. Mike, in fact, my line on this game was Texas A&M minus 3.1. So now the market has gotten exactly to where I am on this game. Zap some of the value out. But Mike, at that 3 number for people out there considering, do I put a bet on this game or not? Do you like A&M or do you like Miami?
I hate this game. I hate that line. I don't know what I'm going to get here. Texas A&M had a horrible season last year. You didn't really get any judgment on their first game of the season, of course. Miami looked okay. Is Miami of Ohio that bad? I really don't know. Mario needs his first sort of signature win, and Jimbo needs a win to keep his job, not this game, but this season. He needs to win games like this. I don't know what you're going to get. I do like the under because I think you're going to see a little bit of a mistake-prone football game. Connor Wegman, I like, potentially. He's probably the best quarterback that Jimbo's recruited at Texas A&M. He inherited Kellen Mond, who I know you hate Kellen Mond with a passion, but
sure do.
He was solid for A&M. I mean, he was a guy that didn't reach expectations, but Jimbo could work with him. Wegman's better than that as far as a skill set. As a passer. I don't know about a runner, but I don't trust Van Dyke. I think Wegman might make a couple mistakes. I'm going the under here. I think you just got to root for this game to be low scoring, but I would not touch 3. I wouldn't touch 4, but I don't like this line at all.
Yeah, like I said, a lot of the value has been zapped from it. Gun to my head at the 3, I'm still leaning towards Miami. Them at home, I think it's 2 teams. You mentioned both teams last year really struggled. Both these teams are way better this year. We don't know yet how much better. We're going to find out a lot tonight with this game. But it's one of those, like, I just feel like getting points with the home team in that scenario is something I want to do. Miami was so snake bitten with injuries last year. Cristobal's first 2 coordinator hires did not work out. He at least was able to acknowledge that and bring in new ones. Shannon Dawson seems like the offensive coordinator there, the Dana Holgorsen disciple, seems like a much better fit for Miami, certainly than the dude before they brought over from Michigan. So we'll end up seeing, these, like I said, this is an educational game, very interesting, but I would lean Miami. And Mike, this game, I got a ton of prop angles in. I like I don't know what the numbers are out there right now, but the tickets that I got Amari Daniels. They put out a over-under prop, half a rushing touchdown on him. I went under that. I also went under Amari Daniels' rushing yards. I'll find that in a second. I'm over on the Henry Parrish ones. I thought those were set too low. Prize Picks, his fantasy score was 8.5. I feel like Henry Parrish is going to get over that today. Connor Wiegman earlier this week, I bet the over on 241 and a half passing yards for him. With Bobby Petrino running that offense, their passing game's way better. And Mike, as you know, like their receiving talent is awesome. Between Evan Stewart and Moose and like all those different kids, that's we're seeing that already playing up. I expect that to more in this game as well. I'm on the Evan Stewart over. He was at 69 and a half earlier this week. I don't know where it is live, but I went over on that one. I also went over on the Van Dyke 236.5. I like and Amari Daniels of 55 and a half rushing yards. I went under on that one.
So Stewart's at 64 and a half. I like the over on that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I like
a bargain.
I don't like Van Dyke over. It's 241 and a half right now. I don't like him over that.
You don't like the Van Dyke?
No, I think they're going to have to pass. I just like, first of all, I don't think he's healthy. I just don't think he's ever recovered from last year's injury. Doesn't look the same as he did, before that injury when he was a potential NFL draft pick. And I just don't like the durability question here. So if I'm taking an over on a quarterback that could be hurt in the second quarter and miss some time, I just don't trust that. So, the other props that Evan Stewart's a dude. I mean, he's just awesome. He was a 5-star kid coming out of high school. A lot of attention is paid to Aeneas Smith, and this is your, sort of bigger across the middle type of receiver, but he's also got that same speed, not as fast, but close. And then, Parrish is rushing yards 53.5 right now, and Amari Daniels 57.5. So those are the live numbers for some of the props you took, but you're propping this game out like crazy. I mean, I don't know. Other than, Evan Stewart, I agree with you, and I lean towards Van Dyke under that number.
So we'll get back to your guys' audience questions now. Steve DiNucci asks us, does Michigan play 4 quarters today, or do they stop playing again in the third like last week? I would guess more towards the latter. But because of that, it's really hard to bet that one. In this game, it's going to be, I forgot, Mike, is the running back coach the first? Oh, yeah, Mike Hart's doing the first half, and Jay Harbaugh, the special teams coordinator and the safeties coach, is doing the second half. We just don't know what their prerogatives are, right? And like how, is UNLV going to lay it all out on the line here to try to stay within that number? That one's harder for me, although I do like a couple props in that game. One of my favorite ones was I like to double dip on Donovan Edwards. I felt like his rushing total was set too high. He was only like 10 yards beneath Blake Corum when I bet it. He was like Edwards like 76 and a half or 77 and a half, like something like that. I feel like that's too high, especially in a game that's going to get away. But I felt like his receiving total, let me see if I can find that real quick where that was at.
It's actually only 17 and a half.
Yeah, over. Yeah, no, and that's what I got too. So over the 17 and a half receiving for Edwards, he could get that on one play, but I'm going under the 77 and a half running yards because I just don't know why you're going to wear him out with that. And Corum's the meat and potato runner guy anyway. Let's see. Colby says, hey guys, I love the show. Thank you, Colby. Appreciate it. Underrated game today is Kansas State versus Troy. Troy being 15-point underdog. Can Gunnar Watson and Vidal cover? Well, first of all, I'll say I got that Vidal kid on my 50-team fantasy league. I'm a big fan of Mr. Vidal. He's been going ballistic since the end of last year. They can run. And Mike, we seen last year, early season, you'll recall, we were just talking about Tulane. Kansas State in Manhattan got ambushed by a G5 opponent before the public had sort of circled around them. Troy is one of the better G5 teams. Do you think Troy's got any shot in this one?
No. I think they're, a pretty good team. I really like Kleiman. I really like Kansas State. I think they're going to be one of the better teams in the Big 12. I think it'll be close for a little bit, but I mean, it's a high number. But I'm not betting on Troy. I think this could be, a 3-touchdown win. So I'm on Kansas State.
My line on that one is Kansas State minus 17.4. But that one is a pure stay away for me, especially after the last year with how that thing went down. Mike Huseman, our buddy Mike, asks us, Texas State plus 13.5 against UTSA. Seems like a big spread for how TJ Finley looked last week. What do you guys think? Mike, you want to start this one?
No, I'll let you go.
Okay. So earlier this week, this line actually opened lower. And at that time, I was showing value on UTSA. Or it started. Yeah, no, I'm saying that right. Now with where this thing has gotten, I'm not really showing any line value anymore, especially at the 13.5. My line in that game is UTSA minus 12.5. So, I mean, like, and I feel like that's pretty objectively fair. That's sort of how I would gauge that one. If it's at 13, I don't want any part of that. Texas State is very clearly better. I mentioned before, I think UTSA, they played better than they got acquitted on the scoreboard last week, but they still started a little bit slow. So we'll just have to see with them. But sorry, Willie Fritz, can I get through my show before you tell me if Pratt's gonna play or not? We're
I'm
still
hearing,
waiting on a text back on that one.
I'm hearing more and more he might not play now. I got
Okay, what makes sense?
it's he might not play. So everything I said about Tulane, forget if he's not playing.
Yeah, I did get a response to my text. I don't think so. Was the response?
Yeah,
Is Michael Pratt going to play today?
yeah.
Um, hold on. Yeah, I don't think Michael Pratt's playing today. So anyway, for whatever it's worth.
So you were saying UTSA, Texas State.
Yeah, I'm with that one at 13.5. I'm going to stay away from that one. I felt like I said earlier this week, there was some value on UTSA. I feel like that's gotten zapped away. I want to see more at Texas State. I just don't know if Baylor stinks. Is Texas State that good that they showed? I'm not really sure. I'm going to stay away from that one. CBRX93 says, should I bet East Carolina over 41? They are playing Marshall today. I got that one. My total on that is 42.4.
Yeah, I'm over.
We're pretty close on that one, but yeah, I mean, I guess you'd shade it over. Mike Lukovitz says we rocking Bonix over rush yards prop. Mike, I need a number on that.
It's 26. So
what is it?
26 and a half. They've adjusted. Remember last season we won all this
We're
money.
too low.
That's too high. I'm not taking.
Yeah, that number that's closer.
Yeah, it was like we were popping 21, 18s, like winning money like crazy. Then he had the ankle.
Yeah.
This year they've adjusted Bo Nix's rushing yards, so I'm not on that this season. 26 and a half too high for me. I'm not on the under either. I'm just not touching it.
Yeah, I think you can find better value in the prop market, and we'll keep giving out our prop picks as we go. So that would be a stay away from me. Christian says James Madison minus 6.5. Thank me later. Take it to the bank. Christian, you're supposed to put it in the form of a question. This is like Jeopardy.
You give us gambling advice. I could use it.
my line on that one is I guess I'm opposing him is James Madison minus 2.8. I don't love the Virginia team, so it's not that like I'm not betting that game. But yeah, laying 7 on the road with James Madison. We'll see if it works out for him. We'll have to see. I don't think Musket is playing today, Mr. Tony Musket. I don't know how much that'll matter for Virginia, but and then we got one other one before we get back to ours, Mike. Purdue is at Virginia Tech. I guess he's saying it's a 2.5 line live here. I don't like Purdue defense at all. Any thoughts? Well, yeah, Purdue's defense stinks. Mikey Keene, they turned Mikey Keene into Drew Brees for one afternoon.
Yeah, but Virginia Tech's offense stinks too. So
it's terrible.
Whatever the under is, hammer it. I don't know what the exact line is right now live, but I would take the under in that game.
I'm on Purdue in that one. My system's total for whatever it's worth is 51.4. Any other questions that you guys have, just put it in the chat. We'll do one more sweep through before we get out of here today. Mike, the next game, as I find myself in the sheet that is on our docket, is
UCF Boise State.
UCF Boise State line. I assume 3.5 still live. Yeah. UCF on the road going to Boise. I like a side in this one, Mike. Do you?
I know what your side is.
Yep.
So here's the thing. I like the same side you do.
Okay.
Concerned about? Did you see Boise State's uniforms?
No. What do they got?
All blue.
Oh.
On that Smurf turf, all blue. They might as well do the Avatar movie and paint their faces blue. I think that should be illegal.
It should.
I mean, they are blue on a blue turf.
I guarantee they do that thing like on the kickoff where the kid lays down flat, the blue on blue, and they do some trick play with that.
I'm just saying. Like,
it's going to happen today.
Really, not that that's going to be a big factor. UCF's a better football team. Boise State did not impress me last week at all. I think the program has fallen apart a little bit. And UCF, I've been strong on as a member of the Big 12, give UCF a couple of years too, because the way they're recruiting, I mean, they're going to be a real deal in the Big 12. But give me Gus, give me, even though I don't like John Reese Plumlee, give me them to cover this on the road. Unless they can't find the Boise State players.
I'm laying the points here too. My line in this game is UCF minus 8.3. I'm showing more value on UCF than most sides this week. I like the UCF team. They brought back most of the guys from last year, and we talked about this over the summer. That's a roster that could quickly transition into the Power Five because almost everyone on their roster either started at the Power Five and transferred down, or picked UCF over a Power Five school when UCF was in the AAC. They have fabulous team speed. That's what Gus Malzahn has always fetishized. They have it here. Rice Plumlee is exactly the kind of quarterback that he likes. And that offense has obviously taken off. You can't take too much from the Kent State game because Kent State is an abomination of a program this year. Kent State's going to be one of the worst teams in the FBS that we've seen over the last decade. That team is they can't tackle or anything like that. But I like this UCF team. And to the Boise State thing, I don't like the offensive coordinator. I don't like the Bush Hamden guy. All summer he was saying like, oh, we're gonna Talon Green his development. We're gonna turn him into a pocket passer. We're gonna improve his passing, stuff like that. I had heard they were working on his passing mechanics. That was the positive thing because Talon Green certainly needs that. He has some accuracy issues, different stuff like that. But the confining him to the pocket thing is super stupid. Talon Green's one of the most dynamic athletes we have at that position in college football. The first game, they only let him leave the pocket a couple times. Bush Hamden was promising we're going to keep him in the pocket. I don't know. You're constricting one of the best things that your offense can do by doing that. And by the way, we saw the manifestation of that not only with his rushing. Holani didn't rush as well, and GT didn't rush as well in the first game. When you have the quarterback, you also have to defend. And he's a legitimate rushing threat. That tends to tick up your running back production as well. I didn't like the looks of any of that. I think UCF wins this game by double digits in Boise today. Although the blue jerseys, Mike, do concern me a little bit, but not enough to back off my read there. Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, let's get to the main course, Mike. Biggest game of the day, Texas plus. Are we 7.5 now in the market or 7? This thing's been toggling. It'll go 7, 7.5, 7, 7.
I gotta find it. Keep talking.
I think last time I seen it was at 7.
7.
So Texas minus 7 heading to Tuscaloosa. Very interesting game. My line on this, I'll tee up with this, Mike, is Alabama minus 5.6. I've been pretty vocal about the side that I'm on here. Who do you like?
I like Texas to cover. I still think Alabama's going to win the football game. I think Nick's going to find a way. This is a kind of a down roster for Alabama. That they lack a lot of the, positional depth and star talent we've seen over the years. Milroe is a former Texas commitment, if you remember. Texas kid, it's a big game for him. They're gonna run him a lot. They're gonna, there's gonna be a lot of, attempting to wear down Texas at home. Tuscaloosa is gonna be a grinded game for Alabama. They're going to, win the football game by a field goal, but they're not going to cover that 7. The biggest thing is Texas. Are they ready? Are they ready? They have a lot of confidence based on last year's game and almost winning that game. And they've got a great roster. They didn't show anything they're going to show today against Rice. But is this the game where, Quinn Ewers comes out as a legit, potential top 15 NFL draft pick, or does he throw 2 picks? I don't know. But I do know 7's too much for this Alabama team against Texas. I'll take Texas. And I think Alabama wins by 3.
Yeah, I'm taking Texas too. Like I said, Alabama minus 5.6, and I do think Texas is live here. I got money line tickets as well. You just look at the rosters, just one against the other. Texas has advantages in a whole bunch of different spots. Certainly, quarterback, skill, talent as well. And then you look at the defensive thing. A lot of the positions you would give to Texas. Particularly today when Alabama could be depreciated in the secondary. They had 2 starting defensive backs that are questionable. I think I saw a thing this morning. It looks like Moore is trending towards playing now. Might not be 100%. We'll have to see on that. Texas has one of the best receiving corps in the nation. Mike, like you said, a lot of pressure here on Quinn Ewers, or a great opportunity for Quinn Ewers, depending on the way that you want to phrase this. Because, yeah, he goes in and rips up Alabama. He's shooting up the draft boards. He's going to be number 2 or number 3 on the Heisman board next week, everything like that. The one thing you're interested in there, and I'll be paying particular attention to because I'm on the Texas side, the one trepidation I have with it is I mentioned before, Rice defensive front was doing some stuff against that Texas offensive line. Texas's offensive line returned all 5 starters, and all 5 starters last year started 13 games. So it was a unit that was solid last year, should be better this year. First game, not quite as much, but Mike, you mentioned that was a vanilla game plan. They were not aggressive at all. It was just they were rolling the ball out. Our eyes are on Alabama. So we'll have to see if there was anything fluky in that. But I just like Texas's talent in comparison to Alabama here. I think Alabama's down. I do not trust Jalen Milroe as a thrower. I do not like his receiving core. And so if this game devolves into Jalen Milroe having to scramble around, I just don't like it for Alabama. Certainly taking the 7 or 7.5, whatever you got out there. And like I said, I'm also on the money line with Texas. I also got some props in that one, Mike. I don't know about you. I like the over on, I got to see the numbers I got. I like the over on Isaiah Bond, the receiver for Alabama. He might be the best receiver they got. 51.5 was the number I had. There's some books I think was even high 40s. The receiver I'm fading on Alabama, as always, Mr. Jermaine Burton, who's returned a lot of money to Thor, fading him these last couple of years. He was at 51.5.
46 now.
Burton is?
For Burton, yeah.
Yeah. So the Burton one's come down. I guess other people are fading him as well. Jace McClellan, I got a bad number on this. I think this has jumped way up. Jace McClellan, I got an over ticket on him at 54.5, but I think that they've adjusted that one. That was just a mistake.
69.5 now.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like Jatavian Sanders is 37.5. He's going to be over that.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Yeah, the Ewers passing yardage, I thought was maybe a little bit low too, depending on the status of the Alabama secondary guys. Ewers played very well up until his injury last year.
I mean, and the secondary's banged up. I would go over on that too.
Mike, the next one we're going to talk about Oregon traveling to Texas State, going down to Lubbock. Oregon last week hung an 80-plus burger on some hapless FCS team. Texas Tech started out well against Wyoming and Laramie, and then Craig Bull does what Craig Bull does, and they wore down Texas Tech. I don't know if Texas Tech was overlooking Wyoming to the Oregon. That would make sense, but they did come out and start quick, but then they faded down the stretch there. But despite last week's results, we've seen the market sort of circle around Texas Tech in this game. This line was a touchdown or a little bit above for Oregon State early in the week. Live now, it has dropped all the way down to Oregon -6 in Lubbock tonight. Mike, with those being the numbers and a 68.5 total on this game, what are you betting here?
Yeah, I like Joey McGuire. Hold on, I got a prop. I rarely have a prop, but
I love when you have props.
So there's a prop. So
I love that.
Beautiful.
Is that a Joey McGuire signature there?
It is. It's a Joey McGuire signature.
Okay, I love that.
Isn't it nice?
I do like that.
So Texas Tech, yeah, they were overlooking, I think, Wyoming, and so they're the hunted. This is what's funny about this is, to me, they won a lot of close games last season, and a lot of those close games they weren't supposed to win, so they were like the underdog in the fourth quarter and fighting and scrapping, getting to overtime, winning games. He taught his team how to win close games when they weren't the hunted. Last week, they had a lead in the fourth quarter, and they became the hunted, and they didn't really know what to do. They sort of fell apart. They ended up losing the game in overtime. They were thinking ahead to Oregon, of course. I think that's going to be a learning experience for them. Lubbock's hot. It's a good home field advantage for them. Oregon is a good football team. Don't get me wrong. I like Bo Nix. I like what they have there. Dan Lanning is a solid coach, better recruiter than coach right now. Has to prove that he's not Mario Cristobal Part 2. And McGuire's going to have this team ready. So give me Texas Tech. I mean, you could money line it if you want, but at the very least, you give me 6 in Lubbock. I'm going to take the 6.
This would be your plus 200 to Steve's earlier question. If you're on the money line,
good one because Tulane is out for a plus 200 now.
What's that?
I'm not taking Tulane plus 240 or whatever it was.
Okay, you're switching to Tech.
plus 200.
I like it. Yeah, my line is Oregon minus 7.4, but I couldn't lay that here. If I had to take a side, I'd probably lean towards Tech, but I'm staying away on the side. The bet I like here is the over. My system's over on this is 76.9. I'm taking this thing's going to be a shootout. Texas Tech knows the way that they're going to beat Oregon. The only path to it is they need to put a ton of points on the board. And who is Texas Tech's quarterback, Mike?
Tyler Shuck.
Mr. Tyler Shuck.
Who
You know
used
what
to-
school ran him out of town? Benched him, ran him out of town? Oregon. Revenge game for Tyler Shuck. Zach Kitley's going to be dialing up the passes. Obviously, Oregon going to put up points too, but this is going to be a shootout, Mike.
Yeah, I that's a high number. I mean, but your number is so far above that number that I would lean over as well.
Yeah, these teams are going to play tempo. There's going to be the ball in the air. So I think we're going to get a lot of points. Mike, Wisconsin travels to Washington State and Pullman. Tricky game in Pullman.
Yep.
Second game of the Luke Fickell era. We have is Wisconsin minus 6.5 live, somewhere around there, 6. This number's been dropping as well. Who do you like in this game?
I like Washington State. I think what Wisconsin's going to pull this game out on the road, but that's a very difficult place to play. It's an inflated line, and I'm not really sure why it's so high. So that gives me pause because when it's to me, and I don't know what your adjusted is and all that stuff, but
Wisconsin by 5.7.
okay, so to me, it's obviously not that inflated, but to me, a touchdown or just below a touchdown favorite on the road in Pullman. I just don't like that. I think Wisconsin wins. I think it's a 3 or 4 point game, but I would take Washington State to cover this game for sure. Even though I'm not a big Cam Ward guy, I don't know if I believe in the coaching staff at Washington State. And I'm not one of those that says, "Oh my gosh, this is an adjustment to Luke Fickell." Blah blah blah. I mean, I think they'll be fine, but I just don't see them going on the road and winning by 10 or even 7. So give me Washington State to cover that line and lose a close game.
Yeah, I would also lean towards Washington State if I had to bet it. This is a tough one for me though, because Mike, I'm with you. I'm not the biggest Cam Ward guy, but Cam Ward played very well in the opener. I was wrong about that game. Wazoo went out and blew out Colorado State, but I don't know if that means that Wazoo is significantly better than I thought they were going to be, or if Colorado State's significantly worse, or both. I'm not really sure. But Cam Ward played very well. Is the whole point? He's going to have to play well here to beat Wisconsin or even to cover. But we got a shot at that. Washington State in Pullman is one of the best top 3 against the spread home records that we've seen in college football over the last decade. Just a tough place to play. This is a tough proposition. Second game under Fickell, also second game with Phil Longo. A lot of new faces there. I would have to take the points on that one. Guys, we're going to get back to your questions here before we get out today. So keep putting them in there. But before we continue, I just wanted to tell everyone, join the Betting Pros college football pick'em contest, which you can get to at bettingpros.com/college. Just join that thing. It's for free. There's monthly prizes to whoever's in the top each month, and then a big grand prize at the end for the season long winner. You can join any group, and once you join the thing, your picks for college football so far this season will be counted towards this. The contest is based on ROI and not volume picks. So it's a good way to judge it. So again, that is bettingpros.com/college. Join the pick'em contest. You might win a prize. Mike, get into the night games now, and then we'll get back to the question before we get out of here. Oklahoma State at Arizona State. We don't have to spend much time on this one, but we have the new coaching staff in Arizona State. Not sure if they're trying to win or not. They self-imposed a bowl ban on themselves that wasn't going to come into play anyway, because that is not a bowl caliber team. Obviously, they're starting the true freshman at quarterback, starting some kids at some other positions. And then Oklahoma State coming in, they have the veteran coaching staff, but they don't know what they're doing at quarterback. They're rotating 3 different ones with a line here of Oklahoma State -3 at Arizona State. Who do you like in this one, Mike?
I like Oklahoma State. I mean, Arizona State, Kenny Dillingham he's made the right decision with Rashada. You got to build this from the start. And again, the self-imposed bowl ban gives them the opportunity to potentially have a 4-8, 5-7 season and be okay. They're going to play a lot of young guys. They got a lot of guys in the portal. Oklahoma State doesn't have a quarterback solution. This was the most puzzling thing to me. You always talk about why couldn't you get a better quarterback?
Yeah.
Portal for certain teams. This is the one that puzzles me the most.
Yes.
Horrible quarterback situation Oklahoma State has. It's just tremendously awful. I'm not sure why, but they're still a better football team from A to Z than Arizona State, and they should win this game by a touchdown.
Yeah, your point's well taken, Mike. I mean, they Oklahoma State gave a scholarship to a portal quarterback. They picked Alan Bowman, who we hadn't seen in a couple years, and Alan Bowman really hasn't been the same since he suffered the concussions at Texas Tech. It just is what it is. I was hoping for him. I mean, we just hadn't seen him the last couple years. I like what I'd seen earlier in his career when he was at Cliff Kingsbury, but him being the number 2 guy to come out in the first game was not a great sign. And then he did not play very well. In fact, he got outplayed by Gundy's kid last year. I didn't even think that kid was an FCS caliber quarterback.
Horrible.
So yeah, I don't know if they're going to get anything from Bowman. Why didn't you give a scholarship to one of these million quarterbacks out there? There were so many. Yeah, there were so many. That was a mistake by them. But I'm going to lay it with the Pokes here. At least the Pokes are trying to win, and they have the veteran coaching staff. Whatever. Gundy's been pretty good on the road in his career as well. I just don't think Dillingham is trying to win games. I mean, like it's more accurately stated, everything is prioritized towards development going forward.
Yeah,
That is way more important to him than the result of today's game.
I will tell you, I know Kenny Dillingham very well. He's trying to win games. It's just so he's trying to. This is a youth movement. He has to do it this way.
Long term, he is, but you would have a better odds of winning if all the older guys and whatnot.
Like when Matt Rule took over at Baylor, Baylor was such a
For
disaster.
sure.
Had the different off field issues than Arizona State had, and the blueprint there was Matt Rule still wanted to win games, but he's going to play with his guys, his young guys, and he had a 1-11 season. It was horrible. These coaches are still.
That's what I think this team is.
They want to win. Kenny wants to win every game, but he's being smart about it. So to the point,
you're improving your odds potentially of winning long term by giving the playing time to your young kids, but that does not help you this year.
I don't want a phone call, so that's why I'm correcting you. I don't want a phone call. He's trying to win games, but he's trying to build from the bottom with a young football team. Because you say if anybody says he's not trying to win games, anybody says anybody's not trying to win games, then I'm going to get a phone call and I got to hear it, and I don't want to hear it. So that's why I corrected you. But we're both on the same page here.
We're on the same page. My line on this, by the way, Oklahoma State minus 9.2. So yeah, I'm showing plenty of value on the post.
Oklahoma State's the better football team, and they'll win this game probably by a touchdown, maybe more based on your number.
Mike, this next one, 9:30 kickoff tonight, USC and Stanford. The side, I'm curious to see if you have a side. I'm not as high on that one. USC minus 29.5. I think that one could go either way. What I like in this game is a total play, but I'm curious, what do you like in this game?
I like the side. Stanford can. It's tough. I mean, so the way USC is such a prohibitive favorite in all of their early games, you just have to hope that Alex Grinch gives up 17 to 20 points.
He's going to.
And he will, because their defense is just traditionally horrible, and they can't stop the run, and Stanford's going to play that, sort of power pro-style smash mouth offense. They're going to try to play, they're not going to win the game or come close to winning the game, but they're going to try to play to shorten the game. By that, I mean, just stay in it as long as they can. And I think they can. I don't like the over-under. If I were leaning, it would be the over, of course, because I think if Stanford gets 20, USC will get 50. And then you got the over at 69.5. So, but I'm more on the side here. I think Stanford can cover this line.
Yeah, so I like Stanford's offense certainly more than I thought coming into the season, and a part of that's not my fault because David Shaw checked out these last couple of years, and you go from that. They actually had offensive talent the last couple of years, Mike. That you had Tanner McKee, you had Hodgins, you had Michael Wilson, you had the Bryson Tremaine kid. They had running backs, they had the offensive. They had all this stuff and they couldn't do anything. But now we don't know any of the players, right? It's all these new guys, whatever. But Troy Taylor comes in, a guy who was, if you extrapolated his tempo at the SCS to the FBS, he would have been top 10 last year in adjusted tempo. They're playing the tempo, and they also do interesting stuff on offense with the misdirection, the pre-snap motion, different stuff like that.
But they're going to settle that down in this game because they know they can't.
I don't think so.
They can't get in a shootout with.
I don't think so. They don't have any choice. I mean, like the points are going to come one way or the other. And USC is going to have a real problem with the Urasek kid. I'm on the Urasek overs. I was last week as well. We ripped up Hawaii. Urasek's going to get the ball a lot in this game. And Mike, to your point, you're totally right about that. Like Stanford just has to get to 20 in this thing or so to be viable, both against the spread, but also for us to hit our over. You know, I mean, like if you get over 20 points, I think they're getting there. USC's defense stinks. Stanford now can play a little bit of offense. I think we're getting there. So
But the key against
you're
USC,
laying it. I'm on the over.
you got to run the ball against USC's defense, and I think you'll see more running than you would normally see in a Stanford football game. So, that's why I don't like the side, because I think they could try to make this game shorter in some ways and go against what they like to do with their new coach on offense. And if I'm a game planning against USC and I'm a 30-point underdog, I'm running the ball. Their defensive front stinks. They can't stop the run.
Correct.
So that's what I'm doing. If they come out and throw, they're not gonna cover, and that over is gonna happen. So I'm expecting a different game than you are a little bit.
Yeah, I got some props in this one too. I'm, in I said I like the over, but I'm on a couple unders in this one. Dorian Singer, the books keep putting out lines that are too high for him. They did on the season long stuff. They did last week. I think they did again. So I'm going under on that. I think they're doing the same thing with Mario Williams. I just think it's hard for the Bucks because USC, they're sort of like the Chiefs, right? Where it's just like Caleb Williams, Patrick Mahomes, so good, but it's like they distribute the ball so well, right? It's not like they're not like these, locking onto guys and forcing balls, whatnot. So the target distribution it goes wide, right? And so it's like it's with the receivers. Typically, they're disappointing with the Chiefs, from a fantasy perspective. It's the same thing with the USC receivers in the prop market. It's hard to get a beat on that, but like going under that has been profitable to this point. I'm going to do it again. And like I said, I'm on the Eurosec over. Mike, the last one we're going to discuss, and then we'll get to the rest of our mailbag before we let the people out of here. We can do this one quick. Auburn and California. Auburn is laying 6 points in this game. Cal had a very impressive game last week, going to Denton, Texas, annihilated North Texas. Do you think they have a shot here to spring an upset at home against an SEC team that is going to have to kick off this game 8:30 local time for Auburn? Right, it's earlier on the West Coast, but a weird travel scenario here for Auburn. Who do you like in this one, Mike?
It's 4.5.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, I like Cal. I'm not saying hammer the money line here, but the travel, the wait. I mean, you want to talk about an endless wait to play a football game. Auburn today, the players aren't going to know what to do themselves. They're going to come out a little bit slow, I think. I like Cal to cover the 4.5. I preferred when it was 6, and I did get it in earlier this week when it was 6. So I'm happy with that. If I'm playing it today, I'm a little bit upset that I didn't lock it in a few days ago. But I would still, even with the 4.5, I would take Cal to cover this game, because I think if Auburn wins, it's going to be 2-3 points, and they could lose. Cal could win this game at home.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, same on that. I was looking for the line that a good opportunity to plug the Betting Pros app too. I plugged this in at 6.5 earlier this week, Cal plus 6.5. If you download that app and you turn on notifications, like I was mentioning before, you get all my picks as I lock them in. You get a lot of line value. This is one example of that, Mike. Thank you for mentioning that. I hadn't seen that this morning. That thing has fallen even more. So you said 4.5 right now. I'm still showing a little bit of line value on Cal, even though that line just keeps dropping. My line on this game is Auburn minus 3.7. And in addition to that, I feel like this is a bad situational spot for Auburn. Last week they got their, it was a soft opening for Mr. Hugh Freeze playing UMass. This one is really tough. And by the way, Freeze talked about that this week. He's like, it's a really hard scenario when you have to travel across the country and kick off a game when most people back home are getting ready for bed. It just is what it is. Like we see the thing of moving across multiple time zones and then being in a wonky time for the visiting team on their body clock time. That's a bad scenario. The other thing I'll say is Cal impressed me quite a bit last week. Their starting quarterback, Sam Jackson, snakes on a plane, got injured early. The Ben Finley kid that came in, he looked better than Sam Jackson. So they might have run into one with that. And without J. Michael Sturdivant, I was wondering, do they have enough skill talent? And then Byron Cardwell, they had brought him in to be a compliment for Rott. He had gotten injured. It's like, do they have enough firepower? Jay Knott looked fabulous last week. And Mike, both you and I love Jaden Knott. Auburn is going to have a real hard time stopping Jaden Knott. If Ben Finley, I presume Ben Finley is going to be starting this game. If he plays even close to how good he did last week, this is really tough for Auburn. I like Cal to win this game outright. I said it earlier this week. Still feel that way.
There is one factor here. Jarquez Hunter is going to play.
They're getting him back.
And that changes a lot of things for Auburn. I mean, they're a much more effective rushing team. He's a really, really good running back.
So, they just didn't need him last week.
What's that?
They just didn't need him last week.
No, but they need him this week.
And they do.
So, I think that's going to be a little bit of a factor. That being said, I still think the factor of the travel and the time of the game and all that stuff, and this is still, it's a new coach, new system, new sort of rebuild. I think Cal coming off a confident performance, I'd still go Cal. But Jarquez Hunter is a big deal for them to be back.
For sure. Yeah. And I like this Cal team too. So I'm gonna take Cal to win this one outright. All right, guys, if you have any last minute questions, type them into the chat quick. We got 7 minutes to get through as many questions as we can. So let's get to them, Mike. We did the Purdue Virginia Tech one last time. Let's see. Christian asks us, what do you guys think of the over 53, the total of 53 in the Florida State Southern Miss game?
Over.
I'll pull up mine in that. You like the over, Mike?
Yeah, I do. I think they're going to blast them, but I think they're going to, that's a low number.
We're at, he said 53. My total, my system total 55.3. So I would shade that one over as well.
We both agree it's the over.
Mike Lukovitz says Sanders passing yards over 308. I hope you don't mean Spencer Sanders, Mr. Mike.
Oh, yeah. Of course. He's going to throw 500 yards.
That Shadir one, I think it was 305.5 earlier. So it looks like he'd taken a little bit of money on the over. What would you think about that one, Mike, at 308?
Go over just because they're going to throw the ball so much. Nebraska has a pretty good defense, but, they're going to throw the ball a billion times. I mean, Deion's Deion. His son is his son. They're going to be the Sanders show.
Yeah, 1 week after they made the lines last week for Shadir Sanders are hilarious to look back at. Made a huge mistake there. This one is correct. I think there's better value on the board. I would pass on that one. Mike also asks us, Jalen Milroe, his prop rushing yardage 53.5. That's a pretty good line, isn't it, Mike?
I'd like the over. I think they're gonna. I don't think Saban's going to trust him throwing the football. He's going to throw the football, of course, but I don't think they're going to trust him. I think they're going to come out. They're going to do a lot of misdirection stuff. And they're going to run the football a lot. So I think he's going to get, 40 yards in the first half and then get over that number.
Last week he had 48 and 2 touchdowns on 7 carries. Obviously, they did not need him to leave the pocket as much. You go to last year, Mike, a couple of the games he played just a little bit more. You recall the Texas A&M game where he got the full game, 81 rushing yards in that one on 17 carries. The next week, the week before against Arkansas, 6 carries, 91 yards, and a tutty. That line is right. I feel like that line is fair. So I usually I'll hit the props hard when I think I got an edge on one side, but I just think that is the objectively fair and correct number. I certainly wouldn't go under though, because I think they're going to have to generate offense with Jalen Milroe scrambling around. R. Stews says, sorry if I missed it already, but does Fritz think Pratt is playing today? My intel we have gotten over the last hour and a half suggests that Michael Pratt will not be playing today. And Mike, I think you were saying the same, correct?
Yeah, same.
We are both assuming that Pratt, based on what we're hearing, is not going to play today. Alika Nahinu, sorry if I'm mispronouncing it, says Texas Tech for the upset. Yeah, I think Mike and I both think they got a shot for sure. And Mike's got that Reckham over there. That's a good looking helmet. Good looking signature too. He put the I like when they do the inscription. When they're doing that. I would not have the discipline. If I had to sign 50,000 autographs, I definitely would not inscribe. I would just do the, scribble.
Well, the inscriptions are more money too. Not that I paid money for the, but it says Rackham. That's an inscription.
No, that's what I'm saying.
I
love it when they do that. I'm just saying I would be too lazy.
Oh,
no one's going to ask me for my autograph. But
Joey's on point, man.
Mike Huseman, our buddy, asks us, Mississippi State is -9 hosting Arizona. Jaden Delora passing yards set at 261.5. Do you guys like the over-under? That's an interesting one. Mississippi State, Mike, I'm curious your take on Mississippi State. They, obviously you go from Leach to now Arnett. they switched both the offensive philosophy and the defensive, even though, Arnett was, I suppose not the defensive. Arnett was the defensive coordinator. But on offense, the seismic shift from the air raid to the Appy State more ground and pound thing, they looked okay in week one. What do you think about that passing yards prop for for Delora and then the game itself, Mike?
I'd go above it a little bit, and I think Arizona's going to cover the 9. They're not going to win, but I think they're going to cover the 9.
Yeah, my line on that is Mississippi State minus 10.6, but I definitely would not lay that with
No,
Mississippi.
I'm not betting it. I'm just.
Yeah, I would lean towards Arizona too.
I'll bet it with other people's money. I'm not betting that.
Yeah, the Delora line, I think that's a fair one. I think there's better value out there. I just feel like that number is probably where it should be. Michael Robinson asks us, Mike, first half Utah -4, or are you talking about the game Utah -7 or 7.5? I'm on Utah. I'm riding Utah all the way. So I will lay the 4 in the first half. That's fine. Mario White says Jacksonville State versus Coastal Carolina under 61. What do you guys think about this, please? Mike, do you have any thoughts about Jacksonville State and Coastal?
Number on this? I'm curious. I wouldn't touch this at all.
The game line is Coastal Carolina -13.5 was the last I got on here.
Yeah, but you're over under. It's got to be a little higher than 60.
Oh, my systems is 61.7.
Oh, right on point. Yeah, don't touch it.
Yeah, that's a tough. I mean, like between Tim Beck, I don't love Tim Beck, and then Rich Rod, going to be keeping the ball on the ground and whatnot. Probably lean under if I had to bet it, but I'm not on that one. Then we got, let's see, Dan Chavis asks us Marvin Harrison 78.5 for his receiving yard prop. I'm on the under on that. I got tickets on both Harrison under and Book under. Cashed some of those last week. I don't think they're going to be playing very long today, Mike.
Well, they're going to win the game, but after
Certainly.
offensive performance, I personally think I'd take the over because I think Ryan Day's going to. I think he's going to need to have Kyle McCord have a big game, and if Kyle McCord has a big game, Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to have a big game. So after 23-3, people question the offense. I think they're going to put up 50-something against Youngstown State, and I think they're going to, get their – not that McCord's a Heisman candidate or anything like that, but get their offense, Marvin Harrison Jr.'s number. He's going to go over that. I feel really strongly, actually, that he's going to go over that. And even – I know you say they're not going to play a long time, but I think Harrison has a 100-yard game.
Well, Mike Farrell, I strongly disagree with you. I say it's going under.
Let's bet.
And let's bet. We'll do that off air, and let's get right to that because we're out of time for today, Mike. Always a fun time. 90 minutes.
High live viewership today.
Oh,
I don't like it though because
thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
And that puts more pressure on us.
But Mike, we don't feel pressure. We're like Coach Prime.
We're flying over the bar, man.
Oh, love it. Everybody that tuned in, thank you so much. Mike and I really appreciate it. Thank you for coming this time. Please join us next week. Same time, same place. We'll do the same thing. 90 fast break minutes, all of our sides, totals, props, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Also, check out the Betting Pros podcast. Mike and I this year are doing a midweek podcast. So subscribe to the Betting Pros podcast. You'll get all that. My early line show with Froton, of course, the midweek show and everything like that. Been a ton of fun. But until next week, for Mike Farrell, I am Thor Nystrom. Let's cash some tickets.